That's the truth, ugly as it is. I'm 36 years old, sitting in a one-bedroom apartment that smells faintly of old coffee and loneliness, staring at a stack of unpaid bills. I used to have a husband who loved me, a circle of friends who respected me, and a reputation I could be proud of. Now, my phone barely rings unless it's a debt collector, or some guy who only wants one thing. I ruined it all. Not because I fell in love with someone else. Not because I was swept away by some grand, romantic affair. No, I let myself be used. Over and over again. By a man who never promised me anything, never gave me anything, and never saw me as more than an option for when he was bored. And here's the part that twists the knife. I told myself it was just for fun. That it wouldn't touch my real life. That my marriage could survive a little secret as long as I kept it separate. I convinced myself that what Ethan, my husband, didn't know wouldn't hurt him. But it did. When the truth came out, he didn't shout. He didn't even cry in front of me. He just looked at me with this expression I can't forget, like he was staring at a stranger. Then he walked away and never looked back. Friends chose sides, and spoiler, they didn't choose mine. Suddenly I wasn't invited to things. Group chats went quiet. The men who did show interest made it clear they weren't looking for a girlfriend, just a warm body. I thought I was in control. I thought I was the one calling the shots. But when you let someone treat you like you're disposable, you start to believe you are. And the worst part? I did it to myself. Ethan and I had been married for 7 years when everything started to shift. Not in some dramatic, explosive way, there were no screaming matches or slammed doors. It was slow. Quiet. Like a dripping faucet you barely notice until the sink is overflowing. Ethan was a good man. The kind who always paid the bills on time, remembered to change the oil in my car, and kissed me goodbye before leaving for work. He wasn't perfect, but he was steady. Dependable. And if I'm honest, that steadiness was what made me fall in love with him in the first place. But somewhere along the way, steady started to feel dull. We had a routine, and it never changed. Dinner, dishes, a bit of TV, then bed. On weekends, maybe a grocery run or a movie. Nothing bad. Just predictable. The passion that once made my heart race had been replaced by something softer, quieter, and I told myself that was normal. Except deep down, I missed it. I missed feeling like someone couldn't keep their hands off me. I missed the spontaneous texts in the middle of the day, the lingering kisses in the kitchen, the spark in his eyes when I wore something new. Ethan still told me I was beautiful sometimes, but it felt more like a habit than a truth he saw in me. He was busy. Work had been demanding for months, late nights at the office, business trips that left me eating takeout alone. And when he was home, half the time he was on his laptop or exhausted on the couch. I can't remember the last time we had a real conversation about anything other than bills, work, or errands. And me? I didn't exactly try to fix it. I buried myself in my phone at night, scrolling through social media, looking at other people's lives and wondering if I'd made a mistake settling down so young. I wasn't unhappy, but I was restless. That's the dangerous thing about boredom. It can disguise itself as unhappiness. I told myself I still loved him, and I did. But instead of addressing what I was missing, I started to imagine what it would be like to have more. Just a little thrill on the side. Something harmless. Something that wouldn't interfere with my marriage. I convinced myself that spicing things up didn't have to mean changing anything between us. That I could keep my marriage intact and still have that rush of being wanted, craved, pursued. It's embarrassing to admit now, but I almost felt justified. I told myself Ethan was too busy to notice, that I deserved to feel desirable again. That I was still young, still attractive, and I shouldn't let the best years of my life slip away in a haze of laundry and work emails. I didn't realize then that what I thought was just a little excitement was the first crack in the foundation of everything we'd built. And once you start looking for that spark somewhere else, you always find it. I met Ryan on a Saturday night I wasn't even supposed to be out. A mutual friend, Jessica, had invited me to her birthday gathering at this trendy little wine bar downtown. Ethan was working late, again, and I figured I'd make an appearance, have a drink, and head home early. I wasn't in the mood to socialize, but I hated the idea of sitting in our quiet house, alone. That's when I saw him. Ryan was standing at the bar, laughing with two other guys, drink in hand. Mid-30s, tall, broad shoulders, dark hair with just a hint of gray at the temples, the kind that made him look distinguished instead of old. And his smile. God, that smile. The kind that makes you feel like he already knows you're going to say yes to whatever he asks. Jessica introduced us when I came over to say hello. The moment his eyes met mine, it was like someone had turned up the heat in the room. He shook my hand, but instead of a quick, polite shake, he held on just a little too long. Long enough to make me aware of the warmth of his skin against mine. We started talking, and within minutes, I felt something I hadn't in years, the spark. The way he listened when I spoke, leaning in like every word mattered. The way his gaze lingered, not shy or nervous, but deliberate. Confident. I found myself laughing more in that first hour than I had in months. The drinks kept coming. At some point, Jessica wandered off to mingle, and Ryan stayed by my side. I told myself it was harmless, just conversation, just a little harmless ego boost. But when he brushed his hand against my lower back as he leaned in to tell me a joke, my whole body lit up. When the group decided to head to another bar, Ryan offered to walk me to my car since I was calling it a night. I should have said goodnight right there, thanked him for the company, and gone home. Instead, we ended up standing beside my car, the cold air making me shiver, his eyes locked on mine. Then he kissed me. It wasn't tentative or questioning, it was like he already knew I'd kiss him back. And I did. That kiss turned into another. Then into him pressing me gently against the car door, his hands tangled in my hair. It was intoxicating. The kind of kiss that makes you forget you have a husband at home, a life, a conscience. We exchanged numbers that night. I told myself I wouldn't use it. The next evening, my phone buzzed. Had a great time last night. Want to grab a drink? I didn't hesitate. That drink turned into him inviting me to his place. His apartment was neat but clearly a bachelor space, minimal furniture, a TV bigger than mine and Ethan's combined. We didn't make it past the couch. It became a pattern after that. He'd text me late at night, "What are you doing? Come over." Sometimes it was after work, sometimes after I'd already eaten dinner with Ethan. I told myself I was in control, that I could stop whenever I wanted. But the truth? I never said no. He never took me out. Not once. No dinner dates, no movies, no holding hands in public. I was always coming to him, always at his convenience. He never stayed over, never asked about my day beyond what was necessary to get the mood going. There were red flags everywhere, blazing, neon red flags, but I ignored them. Because the way he made me feel when we were together drowned out everything else. I felt wanted. Desired. Craved. And I thought that was enough. I didn't realize that by letting him set all the rules, I was handing over more than just my time. I was giving away my self-respect, one night at a time. Ethan wasn't a fool. He didn't wake up one day and magically realize something was wrong. It was a slow accumulation of little shifts. At first, it was just me being distracted. My phone glued to my hand more often, my attention drifting when he spoke. I started dressing differently, too, buying clothes that weren't really me, at least not the me he'd known for years. Dresses with deeper necklines, heels I couldn't walk in for more than a few hours, perfume I'd never worn before. I told myself it was harmless, that if he noticed, he'd just think I was taking better care of myself. But I could see it in his eyes sometimes, the way they lingered on me, suspicious but unsure. I started locking my phone, keeping it face down on the counter. If it buzzed, I'd pick it up before he could glance at the screen. The distance between us grew like a slow-moving storm cloud. We were still under the same roof, still having dinner together, still exchanging the occasional goodnight kiss, but there was a hollowness in it all. Then came the night it all came crashing down. I told him I was going out for a girls' dinner. Jessica had texted in our group chat earlier that day, and I knew it was the perfect cover. In reality, I was meeting Ryan at his apartment. He texted that he couldn't stop thinking about last time and wanted to see me. While we were tangled on his couch, he snapped a quick picture of his whiskey glass with my hand resting on his thigh in the background, subtle, but not subtle enough. He posted it to his Instagram story with a smirking emoji. A mutual friend saw it. And she sent it straight to Ethan. I had no idea, of course. When I got home later that night, Ethan was sitting on the edge of the couch, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. He didn't look angry, just emptied. "Hey," I said cautiously, setting my purse down. He looked up at me then. His eyes weren't red, but they were glassy. "Was I not enough for you?" he asked. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might throw up. "Ethan, don't," he cut in, his voice low. "I know. I've known for a while. I just didn't want to believe it." I opened my mouth to try and spin it, to tell him it wasn't serious, that it was just physical. I wanted to frame it as a mistake, something meaningless. But before I could speak, he shook his head. "You don't get it," he said. "The worst part isn't that you slept with someone else. The worst part is that you let him treat you like you're worth nothing. You let him use you like you were disposable. And you thought that was okay." His words landed harder than any screaming match could have. My throat went dry. "I still love you," I whispered, though even I wasn't sure if it was true anymore. He just looked at me for a long moment, like he was memorizing the face of someone he used to know. Then he stood up. "I'm leaving tomorrow," he said simply. "I'll stay with my brother until the paperwork's done." "Paperwork?" My voice cracked. "Divorce," he said. And that was it. He walked past me, into our bedroom, and closed the door. The next morning, he was gone before I woke up. No note. No goodbye. Just the faint scent of his aftershave lingering in the air. And for the first time, it hit me, this wasn't just a mistake I could patch up with apologies. This was the point of no return. After Ethan left, I told myself I could at least salvage something from the wreckage. Ryan. Surely now that I was free, he'd step up. We could stop sneaking around, start going on real dates, maybe even see where this thing could go. I clung to that idea like a life raft, because if Ryan became my boyfriend, maybe my marriage falling apart wouldn't feel like such a complete waste. But it didn't take long to see I'd miscalculated. Badly. If anything, Ryan became more distant after Ethan left. He didn't text to check in, didn't ask how I was coping. The only messages I got from him were the same as before, "You up?" or "Come over." No invitations to dinner. No, "Let's get out of the city for the weekend." Just me driving to his place at 10 p.m. and leaving before sunrise. At first, I convinced myself he was just giving me space, letting things settle. But deep down, I knew the truth, this was all I'd ever been to him. One night, after another quick hookup where he barely looked at me afterward, I finally worked up the courage to ask. "So, what is this, exactly?" I said, my voice tentative but hopeful. He raised an eyebrow, like I'd just asked him a bizarre question. What do you mean? I mean, are we together now? I'm not married anymore, so. I trailed off, feeling ridiculous even as the words left my mouth. Ryan let out a short laugh. Not a warm, amused one, a sharp, dismissive one. Come on, he said, shaking his head. We were never dating. You were just convenient. The word hit me like a slap. He didn't soften it. Didn't apologize. Just stood up to grab a beer from the fridge, like he hadn't just reduced me to a footnote in his life. I left without saying goodbye. After that, the messages from him stopped. A week went by. Then two. By the third week, I accepted he'd ghosted me completely. The final blow came on a Saturday afternoon. I was out grabbing coffee when I saw him, walking down the street, holding hands with a woman I'd never seen before. She was laughing, and he was looking at her in a way he'd never looked at me. They stopped at a crosswalk, and he kissed her forehead. It was the kind of simple, public affection I'd secretly wished for all along. And now I knew, he just never wanted it with me. I stood there, coffee going cold in my hand, watching the man I'd risked everything for treat someone else like she mattered. And in that moment, I felt the weight of it all. I had destroyed my marriage. Shattered my reputation. Alienated my friends. And for what? For a man who never saw me as more than a warm body to fill his empty nights. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was humiliation. It didn't take long for the whispers to start. At first, I thought I could keep the details of my divorce private, maybe just say Ethan and I had grown apart. But in a town where everyone knows someone who knows someone, secrets have the shelf life of a ripe banana. Jessica stopped inviting me to group hangouts. When I asked why, she dodged the question, but I could tell. People had chosen their side. And it wasn't mine. The ones who did still talk to me weren't much better. There was this edge in their voices, like they were holding back judgment but couldn't quite hide it. I'd see the quick glances they exchanged if I mentioned going out at night. Word had spread, I'd cheated on Ethan. Not just cheated, but let some guy treat me like a doormat. It didn't matter that Ethan had been working late, that our marriage had grown cold. The narrative was simple, I was the villain. And somehow, that label bled into everything else. A few men showed interest, sure, but their attention was different now. It wasn't flowers and dinner invitations. It was late night, you up, texts from guys I barely knew. It was conversations that skipped small talk and went straight to crude suggestions. I overheard one guy at a bar tell his friend, "She's easy, trust me." That one stung the most. It hit me that my name wasn't being passed around in admiration or curiosity anymore. It was being passed around like a rumor you could cash in on. I'd gone from being Ethan's wife, someone people respected, to being that woman, the one who'd say yes anytime, to anyone. When I tried online dating, it was worse. Within hours of making a profile, my inbox was flooded, not with real conversation, but with men sending pictures I didn't ask for, offering no-strings fun, or straight up asking how much I charged. I deleted the app after a week. It wasn't just the men, though. It was how I started seeing myself. Every crude message, every dismissive glance, every invitation that wasn't really an invitation at all, it chipped away at me. And I realized I'd become exactly what I used to judge in other women, someone valued only for sex, not love. It's one thing to be used when you don't know better. It's another to keep letting it happen once you do. The irony. When I was married to Ethan, I used to tell myself I deserved more passion, more excitement, more attention. Now, I'd give anything to go back to the quiet nights on the couch, the steady love, the man who saw me as more than my body. But there's no rewind button for this kind of damage. Some nights, I lie in my too quiet apartment and replay the past few years like a bad movie I can't shut off. I used to think what I craved was love. Looking back, It wasn't love I was chasing at all, it was validation. That heady rush of being wanted, of someone's eyes lighting up when they saw me. I confused that spark for something real, and I let it blind me to everything else. Ethan had loved me, in the steady, quiet way that doesn't demand attention but deserves it. And I threw it away for a man who didn't care if I stayed or left, as long as I showed up when he called. I didn't just betray Ethan. I betrayed myself. I let Ryan treat me like I was disposable, and I told myself it was fine because the moments in between felt exciting. I ignored the way he never made room for me in his life. I ignored the pit in my stomach every time I left his place, alone in the dark. I ignored every red flag because it was easier than admitting I was worth more than what I was accepting. And now, the cost is sitting here with me. Friends I thought I'd have forever have drifted away, either quietly or with a sharp parting comment. Men who show interest in me don't see a future, they see a fling. I can see it in the way they look at me, like they've heard the stories and want to find out if they're true. Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever have a real relationship again. If I'll ever meet someone who sees me instead of the reputation I earned the hard way. Or if, no matter how much I grow, I'll always be that woman in the eyes of everyone who matters. The worst part isn't the loneliness. It's knowing I built this prison myself, brick by brick, choice by choice. I thought being wanted was the same as being loved. Now, I know the difference, and it's a lesson I'll carry alone.